in New York whose dog was literally beaten to death is looking for some justice. And the cops basically told her that she needs to look for the perpetrator herself. And guess what? Desperate for justice, she did just that and got attacked by this individual for the second time. Cops are garbage, especially in this particular precinct where they asked a victim of a violent crime who just had her dog murdered in front of her to go do the investigative work that they're supposed to be doing, that they're collecting taxpayer money to be doing. Anyway, let's give you the context before we get to the update. So Jessica Chrustic, whose dog Moose was attacked on August 3rd, said this: "I put myself in a very dangerous situation so he, meaning the perpetrator, could be apprehended. And as a marathon runner, that's probably the fastest I've run. No one should have to run from their attacker for a second time while waiting for police to arrive." So why did it come to this? This is where we get into a little bit of context. So she followed the man she feared Friday morning because she said police from the beleaguered 78th precinct told her earlier this month that's what she'd need to do to keep the case active. Again, this is, I don't know for sure. He's reported to possibly be a homeless man, clearly with mental health issues. But this is a man who didn't get arrested after the initial attack. It was pretty clear that the cops weren't really serious about investigating it. And the perpetrator had left after the attack before they had arrived, the cops had arrived on the scene. Now, before we get to the harrowing story of the latest attack, let's give you the context, right? So on August 3rd, Jessica Chrustic was walking her dog in Prospect Park a little after 6 a.m., so this is daytime, when she was attacked by this man. He started yelling about immigrants taking over the park, then grabbed a bottle of what she later concluded was urine and sloshed it out at her and her dog. She tried to run away, but Moose, her 80-pound golden retriever mix, was trying to protect her. The man started swinging the stick. One blow connected solidly with the dog's snout. At that point, a hospital manager named Mary Rowland saw what was going on. She said that she could hear the sound of the staff or the stick that the guy was using to attack the dog hit bone. She heard that sound and freaked out. So she ran toward them and started screaming at the guy to get away. Luckily, he did get away. They called 911. 4 patrol cars arrived within a few minutes to do nothing. Okay, no one was arrested. Moose was bleeding from his mouth and pulling to get home, Chrustic said. My focus was just on caring for him. Well, later, the dog died from internal injuries. 3 days later, to be specific, I would lose my mind. I don't know, I'd be beside myself. I mean, anyone would be. Chrustic posted about the whole incident on Nextdoor, this app, for those of you who are unfamiliar with it, where you converse with people from your neighborhood or community. And she was met with some pretty insane pushback by some members of her community who think that this guy should not be arrested under any circumstance. So I'll give you a few examples of those comments. 400 years of systemic racism, which has prevented Black people from building generational wealth through homeownership, resulting in the extreme disparity we see today. Arresting the man would solve none of that. You're right, arresting the man would not solve any of that. It would solve the problem involving a man who has some, mental health issues and engages violently with the local community and kills dogs. It would do something about that. The other comment is the opposite of what we need right now is more cops in this park and more people who want to be helping the cops in this park when people are already being chased down by the cops. They're also being chased down by people who want to hurt them and don't happen to be cops. So we need to deal with that too. Anyway, look, there are no winners in this story because the cops are trash in the way they've handled this. Some members of the self-identified left thinking that this guy should be free to terrorize others because of systemic racism are not helping the situation either. Chrustic appealed to their representative on the city council, Sahana Hanif, for help, but came away feeling her staff members were more concerned with the safety of the man than with the threat he might pose to others. And Michael Whitesides, who's a spokesperson for the city council member, called the situation complicated. Quote, we don't believe that the NYPD is the vehicle to bring safety to our community. When it comes to this individual, they're clearly a present danger to others and most likely themselves, and figuring out how we can safely de-escalate the situation without putting anyone else in danger is complicated, meaning we're not gonna do anything for you either, lady, go cry about it. So you have a leftist city council member who has abandoned her duties to keep her community safe. You have police who are completely negligent and incompetent and have asked this woman to chase down the perpetrator who killed her dog herself, and then she was attacked for the second time. This whole system is so screwed up, Waz. The guy's still out there.
Yeah, I mean, if some NYPD people, adjacent people want to get at me and explain to me why the NYPD no longer feels like they need to do their job, from my understanding is just still being butthurt about getting flack for Eric Gardner, which was legitimately messed up. I don't know, like somebody get at me and explain to me why the NYPD, whose budgets do nothing but balloon. These people do nothing but behave with impunity. What do they have to complain about? Like nobody defunded them, whatever. I don't know what their problem is. Yeah, just the idea that a guy who beats a woman up, then beats her dog to death and beats her up again, shouldn't go to jail just because he's black. That don't compute. I'm sorry, that doesn't compute. And the other thing that's like that Weasley user that was like, oh, the cops are just gonna make this worse. I need people to understand Park Slope, Brooklyn. That neighborhood ain't never had no police problems. That has been a reliably nice, liberal, rich neighborhood for decades. Ain't no police ever gone to no park in Park Slope and start beating people up with batons and shooting people. That ain't never ever happened. So the idea that somebody would get on this app and talk about generational wealth and slavery and all of that, this ain't got nothing to do with that. Like, yes, black people have been put upon in this country, and there's stuff we need to do to address that for a lot of poor and working class black people. Of course, disproportionately black people have been left behind by the systems of capitalism, for trillions of reasons. Like, we can get to that. But this dude, he beat a dog with a stick, killed the thing. He needs to get locked up. This not complicated.
Yeah,
this isn't nuanced. This is none of it. Like, this guy got to go.
Right, and look, I mean, I think that there are legitimate points made about the cruel conditions in prisons. I think there are legitimate points about the conditions at Rikers. I totally agree that people who need mental health treatment should be sent to mental health facilities, and that mental health facilities desperately need way more funding in this country. But let's work on that. And in the meantime, let's not use the lack of a better criminal justice system as an excuse to just let dangerous people assault others and kill dogs on the streets. That's not okay. But I think, to the point that the left accurately makes, the cops in this case didn't keep the community safe. And so policing absolutely needs to be reformed, 100%. So it's obviously a far more complicated story than just pointing to good guys or bad guys. There are a lot of bad guys, in my opinion, involved in this story. And at the end, the person who's left with no justice is the woman who was attacked and whose dog was killed. And we shouldn't be.
And there's no world, even as somebody who considers themselves to be on the left, that I want to live in a place where a dude can throw his piss on me, then kill my animal with a stick and be allowed to prosper afterwards. I'm sorry, we need some restitution, y'all. Please.
I agree. I mean, I totally agree with you on that.
Throw piss on this chick. Come on, man.